Getting Pinterest to work for you can be hard. There are a lot of strategies involved. But if you follow Pinterest best practices, you will have a better chance at doing well. I recently emailed Pinterest about my account and they came back with a link that led to Pinterest best practices. I've never seen this website before, and I'm sure many of you probably never have either, so I wanted to share my findings with what Pinterest considers to be their best practices to help you grow your Pinterest account. The first section on the page is about standard pins, and it's about the size that you want your standard pins to be. As always, you want your pins to be a 2:3 aspect ratio, and the best size Pinterest pin right now coming straight from Pinterest is 1000 by 1500 pixels. This is pretty standard information. And the next thing on the list is about your logo. Pinterest says to put a logo on every pin that you make, but make it subtle. And they warn you to avoid the lower right corner of the pin, because that is going to get covered up by the product pin icons. I was surprised to hear this because I rarely see people putting their actual logo on their Pinterest pin. What the norm is usually putting your website link at the very bottom of the Pinterest pin. I don't ever really see people putting a logo on there. So I did a little bit of research into this to see, does your website count towards being your logo, since it's technically you branding your Pinterest pin? And honestly, I didn't find a lot of information about this, so I'm not sure if it actually matters if your website logo is on there versus your website link. So this is gonna be something good to test. I think for the next couple of Pinterest pins that I make, I'm gonna just put my logo on there and get rid of my website, and then maybe for some of them I will put both and see if they end up doing better. I don't think this is necessarily going to really skyrocket my pins. So personally, honestly, I will be testing, but I think it doesn't really matter if you have your link as long as there's some sort of branding factor on there, making it known that it's your pin. The next thing on the list was to add a text overlay. And this is pretty self-explanatory. I'm sure we all know that we need to add a text overlay to our pin as opposed to just putting up some random photo on our Pinterest page. And when adding text overlays, you want to make sure that you are making the font easy to read. You don't want it to be a calligraphy or something like that, because a lot of people are going to be scrolling through on their phones, and if the text is hard to read or if it's too small, people are just going to scroll on by. So those are a few things that you want to keep in mind when you are creating a Pinterest pin. And the best practice really right now is to use 2 to 3 fonts that you kind of switch in between, because this will help people recognize your pin in the feed a little bit more. And if you use 2 different fonts on your pin, one that is like a bold thing that's easy to read, and maybe one that is a little bit more pretty or cursive so that you can kind of add some personality to your Pinterest pin and some branding, that's really what's going to give you the best results. However, one of the things that I have noticed is some of the top performing pins on my Pinterest have very small text. They're like infographics that have a bunch of information on them. My top 2 pins are infographics that people need to click on in order to zoom in and be able to read it. So you don't necessarily have to make all of your pins just big text. You can mix in some other ones as well, because that seems to be doing well for my account and it does really well on Pinterest in general. So don't be afraid to mix in some other designed pins. The next thing you want to do is to optimize your pin copy. And that might sound confusing, but really all that it means is making sure you have a clear title with a good SEO keyword research description. This is something that I talk about all of the time on the channel. You can have up to 100 characters in your title and up to 500 characters in your description. However, just because you have that many characters doesn't mean you need to use them all. I tend to keep my titles and descriptions pretty short because they're going to get truncated in the feed anyway. However, you want to make sure that you are adding keywords into your titles and your descriptions in order to help you get ranked on the feed. But you do want to be careful and not add too many keywords and keyword stuff your descriptions by just adding keyword after keyword after keyword separated by commas, kind of like you're adding tags into your pin description. You don't want to be doing that. So make sure you are mixing long tail and short tail keywords in sentences. That's going to be what's going to give you the best results. You can also add a call to action if you want, like a click to read more or read this blog post for more information or something like that. And of course, Pinterest warns you to check your links. You don't want someone clicking on your pin and either leading them to the wrong link, a broken link, or even a slow website can hurt your Pinterest rankings. Your pin tells people what to expect when they click. Make sure they are arriving at the place they're expecting to get. And something else is, if you change the link to your blog post, that link is now going to be broken unless you set up a redirect to the correct link. So if you've pinned a blog post a bunch of times, you really want to avoid it changing the link. Otherwise, you're going to have a bunch of pins leading to a bunch of broken links, and that is going to hurt your Pinterest pin rankings. This can also happen on a much larger scale if you decide to change change your entire blog URL. I had to learn this the hard way, which I talked about in this video right here. And the last thing to remember is if your website is slow, that can also lead to hurting your Pinterest rankings as well. If your website is slow, so many people will just end up clicking back onto Pinterest and going to one of the other hundreds of options that they have on the site. And if they bounce back to Pinterest really quickly, this is going to tell Pinterest that whatever they clicked on was not what they expected, and it's going to cause your pins to rank lower in the feed or not be shown at all. So because this will hurt the reach of your pins, make sure your website runs really fast. Now that's it for the advice on standard pins. So next we're going to move into video pins. And video pins is not something that I post a lot on my feed, but it can really help you grab attention because people are more likely to look at a video that is moving around on their screen other than just a static pin. Pinterest suggests that you clearly communicate your video idea and do it in the correct length. The best video length is between 15 seconds and a minute long, so pretty much like a TikTok. But if you are doing a video ad, you want to keep it between 6 and 15 seconds. However, when it comes to video pins, you have to remember that a lot of people are likely going to have their sound off when they're scrolling through Pinterest, and some people might not be in a place where they're able to turn their volume on. So that's something that you want to consider when you're creating video pins. And one of the best practices that Pinterest suggests is you either have captions on your video so people can follow along, or whatever video that you are filming can be clearly communicated without volume. This is why Pinterest says one of their best practices is show, don't tell, even when it comes to video. You can also select a strong cover image. So this is basically going to be like a thumbnail on YouTube. It's the first thing that people see when they see your video pin. So you want to make sure that you have a strong image in order to get people to stop and watch your video. We also have best practices for idea pins as well. Now these used to be called story pins, and they were similar to every other platform who had stories like Instagram and Facebook. However, Pinterest has updated this feature and they're just a little bit different. So now on the Pinterest app, as opposed to having people's profile pictures up on top like you would expect on Instagram and you can click on it and see their story, they now have a watch tab on their website, which is similar to TikTok or Instagram Reels where you're scrolling through a feed of videos. However, unlike these Pinterest stories, they no longer disappear after 24 hours. They are going to keep being reproduced in the feed and you are going to see them on your profile as well. Pinterest recommends when you are doing an idea pin that you start with a video first because they are a lot like TikToks and they're going to capture people's attention in the feed if you have a video. But also make sure to add a text overlay in case people see it in the Pinterest feed and they can't watch with the volume on. And then once you get the viewer reeled in with a video, you can then go add pictures on the other slides if you really want to. Adding just a regular static pin may not work very well because if people are scrolling through the watch feed and they're expecting videos like they would on TikTok, then they're probably just gonna scroll past and not actually read what you have set up. My best suggestion is to save the static things for Pinterest pins. The next suggestion is to make your own content, which is pretty self-explanatory if you ask me, but what they mean is to make sure your videos are original to Pinterest. According to them, they say that watermarked or repurposed content doesn't do well on Pinterest because pinners want fresh and new ideas. So what we can assume they mean by that is don't post your video to Pinterest, Instagram, and TikTok, especially if you have the TikTok watermark on your Pinterest idea pin. Your content may not do very well in that case. However, I don't really believe this to be the case because I do recommend cross-posting all of your videos. If you spent a bunch of time and hard work on one video, it does make sense to post it to Instagram Reels, TikTok, Pinterest idea pins, YouTube Shorts, whatever you have, I recommend you post it to that. However, if you are posting to Pinterest, you might either want to post it there first or post the original video if you do post the TikTok as well so that it doesn't have that watermark on there. But then again, I do see plenty of TikTok watermarked videos on the Pinterest feed and they seem to be doing really well. So according to Pinterest, this is the best practice, but when you actually see it in real time, it doesn't seem like that is to be the case. You also want to make sure that you are sharing the right details with your idea pins. Because if you have never done an idea pin before, they give you an option to either put ingredients or supplies in your Pinterest idea pin. So this will work if you are showing somebody how to cook something, you can put the ingredients in your idea pin so that they can have basically a grocery list. Or if you're doing something like showing people how to craft something, you can show all of the things that you're using to craft that item. And you can even link products as well if you are showing off an affiliate link. You do want to make sure though that you are filling out the relevant tags for your idea pin so that Pinterest knows who to push that video out to. However, in my experience, the tags are not very big. Like there's not a big variety of tags that you can add. So I've never found any that are actually relevant to what I'm doing. But if you have one, of course, make sure to add it. And if you want to learn more about other Pinterest best practices, you'll want to check out this video right here. Make sure to like if you like and subscribe to my channel down below because it really helps me out. And I'll see you next time. Bye.